afternoon. I'm Simbri Ross, the Nonprofit Security Grants Program Grant Program Manager, along with my supervisor, Charles Madden. Congratulations on being one of the 45 award recipients for this 2021 grant year for the National Capital Region. 160 applications were received in our region, with over $5,815,430 awarded, with awards ranging from $41,000 to $150,000. As you know, the period of performance for this award will be from September the 1st, 2021 to the 30th of September, 2023, the two-year initial period of performance, with a possible extension to August 31st, 2024. My role as a grants program manager is to help you accomplish the goals of your project and to ensure completion of your project in compliance with DHS rules and regulations. I will also process your reimbursements. Charles Madden, my supervisor, is the person with whom I consult if any issues arise regarding your project. Please make sure for this orientation that you have the materials that were sent to you in an email, your agenda, the PowerPoint presentation, an SAASP password reset instructions, and a sample project management plan. Now, for the purposes of this orientation, your phones should be muted, but if they are not, please mute them. Do not share your screen. There is a chat function that is available, and you'll be able to submit your questions throughout the presentation. So going to the first slide, you'll see the agenda for today. We will have a review of the SAA subrecipient relationship, subawards, the SAASP Grants Management System, again, slide 1, project management plans, quarterly status reports, our next step after this training, trainings that we hope to have in the latter part of the year, and again, a review of your questions. And again, if you're having any difficulty hearing us, please let us know. Hopefully, you're able to hear, and if not, we'll try to speak more clearly and loudly. But at this point, Charles Madden will review the State Administrative Agency subrecipient relationship.
Okay, thank you, Sembri. My name is Charles Madden. I'm the Chief of the Grants Bureau here at DC HSEMA. Just wanted to give a quick context for how we interact with you as the nonprofit recipients, as well as with FEMA, the federal awarding agency. DC HSEMA is the State Administrative Agent, or SAA, for the FEMA Nonprofit Security Grant Program, as well as several other programs. For this purpose, DC is considered a state for the National Capital Region urban area as well. So although some of your organizations may be located in suburban Maryland or in Northern Virginia, if it's in the National Capital Region, you would be dealing with DC as the state administering agency for this grant. The SAA is a point of interaction with FEMA, and we are the grantee that is, as for purposes of what's listed in the NOFO, or the Notice of Funding Opportunity, the individual nonprofit security recipients are the subrecipients of DC HSEMA. I mention that because if any of you have been reading the NOFO and have thought there's a lot of burdensome reporting required, if it says it's for the grantee, that's for us, not for you. The SAA submits the grant applications to FEMA, submits all required reports to FEMA, and performs drawdowns of the federal funds. Your interaction would be with us for the purpose of your reporting to us or your request for reimbursement and payment from the District of Columbia. The subrecipient would submit your status reports and reimbursement requests to the SAA to receive payment.
Now, you will be receiving an award packet which consists of the terms and conditions of your subaward. You will receive the program notice of funding opportunity, all subaward special conditions, our agency's terms and conditions, the subaward notice, and all of the material which consists of the award package will be entered into our SAASP Grants Management System, which is a repository of grant documents for the purposes of this subaward. So the SAA Grants Management System, at a later date, you will be receiving an email which gives you information on how to access the system using your email address. Again, within the next week, we hope to have your projects available so that you can enter your project management plan. But for the purposes of this training, we're going to navigate the SAA system, SAASP system, so you have at least some familiarity with how it works. But also at a future time in September, we will have an online training SharePoint module available for your review and individual instruction.
Yeah, so we will be using some of the time today to do a quick walkthrough of the SharePoint SAA.SP grant management system. We don't expect that any of the brand new users who've never used the system to have access to it yet. We will be sending you that information for how to log in in the next couple of days. But this is more meant to just be an understanding of what you would do once you get into the system, so that once you've had a chance to actually log in the coming days, you'll then have some familiarity of how to navigate the system. And also, when we're talking about filling out a project management plan, which is the core and most important step we have to do next, that you'll understand not just how, but also what kind of material we expect to go into that document.
So at this time, you'll see on our next slide an example of a project management plan. And a project management plan basically is the document which tells us what your project consists of. It indicates, it explains your project. It should match your investment justification upon which your subaward is based. It should explain your goals, list your deliverables, your proposed expenditures, and indicate expenditures in a way so that we can track your progress. We are going to ask you to complete your project management plan by the 30th of September. You'll also include in this document in the SAASP system who your authorization official is. That is the person who has the authority to sign the award letter, as well as your primary contact and secondary contact. Those are the individuals who will have the responsibility of completing grant documents and managing the project on behalf of your organization, as well as submitting reimbursement requests. Also, as a requirement of this subaward, you will be obligated to submit quarterly status reports, which review on a quarterly basis the progress you've made toward the completion of your project. Again, the quarters are indicated. The first quarter shows activity, or would reflect activity on your project from January the 1st, or really January to March, April to June, July to September, and October to December. The documents would be submitted in the SAASP system, show progress, show accomplishments, but also show impediments to progressing on your project. For instance, if COVID, the coronavirus, hampered you from getting bids from your vendor and you were not able to do anything for that quarter because of the pandemic, that's something you would list as an impediment within your quarterly status report as a hindrance in going forward with your project. But your first quarterly status report will not be due until January 10th, and we will have an opportunity to review this in more detail later in this year. In reference to the next slide, the project file, you should maintain your own record of your subaward, which consists of your subaward letter, the terms and conditions of your subaward, your grant guidance, any subaward adjustments, further documentation for what's known as EHP approval, correspondence with the state administrative agency, the subrecipient handbook, the project management plan, quarterly status reports, any contracts, invoices, purchase orders that you have as part of your project, reimbursement requests, and proofs of completed work.
And just to reiterate this point, we would strongly recommend that every subrecipient maintain their own set of files to comprise a project file. A lot of this material will be in the SharePoint system, That is our system. If you were to need to respond to an independent audit or review, I think they would expect that you would have your own records saved on in your own files, cabinets, boxes, desks, or in a computer system. So we've laid out here the types of things we believe should be available in such a project file, along with you might well want to organize them by these categories. But what we would suggest very strongly is that subrecipients don't leave this kind of documentation scattered around in like somebody's email, on somebody's computer desktop, in different drawers in different offices. In an ideal world, there would either be one place where all this material is available together, or at least everybody knows where this information is, so that if, for instance, you needed to provide a subaward, the award letter, plus your EHP documentation and your reimbursement request, that you'd be able to compile that relatively easily, and you wouldn't be left wondering, well, who had it? So again, we strongly suggest that early on you create a project file and you start adding to it all this relevant information.
So at this time we're going to go through the SAAS system. And again, as Charles has said repeatedly and as I have highlighted, this is the repository for grant documents on behalf of our agency. So you will be obligated to maintain your own set of documents.
Okay, so if you can bear with me 1 second while I switch over and start sharing the SharePoint system.
And please continue to use the chat function as you have questions that occur to you. We will try to answer them as quickly as possible and throughout the presentation. So the first thing that you would normally get...
What I'm sharing here is what you would see once you've logged in. When you get your account set up, if you're a brand new recipient, you'll first be instructed how to log into the system. And I believe we had an example of what the login page looked like back in the PowerPoint presentation. But once you've logged in, this is where you would first land. You'll see the site name, the site address is up here, SAASP at the title page, and you know you're at the front page when you see home. If you ever get lost in the system, you can always click on home to get back where you started. Also, your username will appear in the upper right-hand corner. You're seeing me right now, Charles Madden, but you'll see your own name up there. And then in your display down here, you'll see the subawards that you have access to in this system. For me, I see all the awards, and for right now, we're showing all the training subawards for this purpose. You would see your organization's name, the title of your subaward, the subaward ID, the amount, the type of the grant, which is nonprofit, the year of the grant, and the period of performance end date, as well as who your SAA point of contact is, the status of your project management plan, and the next available quarterly status report.
And it's important when you review the column that's applicable to your subaward, make sure that the name of your subaward is accurate. And if there are any inaccuracies in the name of your organization, please let us know so that we can revise the document or the information that's inputted in the SAAS system. But it's important that it reflects your true legal name or the name that you're doing business under. Also, please ensure that the amount of the subaward is consistent with that that you've been notified of. So one thing that we're going to do today is to start with the subaward identification number so that you can understand what information is within the system in more depth regarding your subaward. So when you click on subaward ID, you'll see a list of documents. First of all, the subaward details. Again, every project is given a subaward identification number by our agency. As we've reviewed before, every grant for this orientation is called NSGP, the acronym Nonprofit Security Grant Program. Every grant for this orientation is for 2021. And again, for subrecipient, it will be the legal name of your organization. The title of all grants will be Nonprofit Security Grant. The award amounts will vary. As we said before, some of the awards are $41,000, some of them are $150,000. So you will get a subaward letter indicating the amount, but you should all have the same period of performance, September the 1st, 2021, until September the 30th, 2023. You have an initial 2-year period of performance with the possibility of extending it an additional year to August the 31st, 2024, if the need arises.
And just to follow up on that, the initial period for all of the subawards being issued is going to be, well, it's just over 2 years. It's going to be 25 months. And we do hope that everybody can get off the ground quickly and get moving and complete their projects within 2 years. It should be feasible based on the scopes of the projects that you all proposed, that you should be able to finish within 2 years. And we really do hope that everybody can finish expeditiously. There is, as Sembri mentioned, the grant itself is 3 years. But we really want to reserve that 3rd year for subrecipients that are experiencing significant delays and need extra help, so that we can focus on getting them finished in that last year if we really need to. But again, hopefully we really hope that everybody can get done in 2 years. Other features that you'll see in the subaward details is your project management plan, and all previous approved project management plans will show up in this section. Right now, there aren't any because the first step hasn't been taken, which is to create your first one. You'll also see beneath here the award and adjustment section. This includes all the terms and conditions that are associated with this award. So when you're getting your award letter and it refers to all these terms and conditions, we have them linked here, so you'll be able to download them and review at your convenience.
And so when we use the term award package, this is the section of the SAAS system that we're referring to. This is your award package.
And right now, this project has no awards uploaded, so there's nothing here, but it'll appear down here as soon as we upload our signed copy. You'll see a link with our signed copy. It'll look just like one of these links with the subaward title in it. And then there will be a blank field over to the right, which will enable you to upload a file. That should be when you've signed the award to complete the agreement between our parties. You would then go back in and upload the signed document over here. Right now, there's a blank field because we haven't uploaded the award yet. The other thing you'll find in the subaward details section is quarterly status reports. This will be a log of all of your submitted quarterly status reports throughout the period of performance. Right now, there are no QSRs, so we just get a little note that says no QSRs found. But as you submit your QSRs, you'll always be able to see the most recent one up on your home screen. But if you want to see all your previous ones, you would go to the subaward details, and they're all archived here. In addition, and this is a relatively new feature, so if anybody is a previous user who hasn't received one of our awards in a couple of years, this may be new to you, is the information and action log. And this is a place to basically include really key documents that don't fit anywhere else. For instance, the environmental and historic preservation request and approval would be, those are documents that we would consider to be extremely important, and we would upload them here. Things like if you were assigned a corrective action based on either problems you're reporting in your quarterly reports or issues we're running into, we might assign a subrecipient a corrective action in this location. Also, when we create your project, the very first information and action log entry is going to be your investment justification. The file that you provided to us that we submitted to FEMA, that's what was approved. And so you'll see it populated there. And then this is probably not an area to become overly chatty in. It's not meant to be a whole lot of back and forth, but it's like if there's the project plan, quarterly reports, awards, adjustments, and the other really big stuff that doesn't fit somewhere else would go into the information and action log to become part of the permanent record. Further down, there's an equipment purchases section to be used to enter either evidence of equipment purchases or major pieces of equipment that might need to be inventoried or assigned a barcode or entered into your inventory system. There's a place to enter it here if you want to. And then, actually, I'm displaying the reimbursements. So that's the end of the subaward details page. Sembri, are we ready to move over to the project plan?
Yes, if we could.
And if you need to get back to the home screen, up to the top, you can hit home.
And I would note that we're getting a lot of questions already about reallocation of funds and things along that line. If you would please give us an opportunity to possibly address some of these questions during the course of our presentation so that you can at least get the essentials of the PMP first. I want to say something about the reallocation of funds, though, before we go forward. It is disfavored, and do the best you can to mirror the investment justification upon which your subaward was based. It was a competitive award, and on the first day of reviewing the grant, we should not have a reallocation of funds question. So at this point, we're going to...
Yeah, I think we can address one question we just showed up in the chat. Somebody who has multiple subawards. They have an award from 2020 and an award for 2021. And the question was, will the documents for both years be available under a single account? Yes, under the single account. It would show up, though, under a separate subaward. So, for instance, this is the quote-unquote training subrecipient. We're using this account as if it was the training, as if it was a nonprofit recipient. So here we can see that this subrecipient has a 2020 nonprofit grant and a 2021 nonprofit grant. Each one is separate. The documents in each one will be separate. The project plan, the quarterly reports will be separate, but the same login will have access to both of them.
So if we may go into create, the way that you access your PMP is clicking on the word create. And there's going to be information in the first section that is pre-populated based on the information we have about you as a subawardee or subrecipient. The term subrecipient and grantee or subgrantee are interchangeable. But this section does not really need to be completed except for checking for accuracy the name of your organization, the amount of the subaward, but there is a drop-down menu for the selection of the correct main supporting ESF, RPWG, and you will select critical infrastructure protection from the drop-down menu.
And just to provide some context, our grants management system was designed to handle a variety of different grants, primarily some Homeland Security grants for the region. There are a couple of places, this is one of them, where a question is more relevant to one of the other grants than to this grant. So when we hit one of those questions, we will tell you how to answer that one. So for this purpose, nonprofits are considered our critical infrastructure. So when we're associating funding with the different work types that are going on in the region, we would just associate it with the Critical Infrastructure Protection Working Group.
When you scroll to the second section, again, from the information you've provided to us about users for the SAAS system, we're going to have in the drop-down menu choices available for you to select the primary contact and the secondary contact. You should also have provided to us information about who your authorization official is. So that information should appear automatically within the box provided. Again, this is the person who will sign your sub-award letter. Your primary contact is the person who is managing your grant, who will complete your project management plan, your quarterly status reports, and in all likelihood, submit your reimbursement request. The secondary contact is the person who would act in that person's stead should that person become unavailable. Or maybe even in conjunction, depending on how your organization has structured the work for your subrecipient management. So again, these people are responsible for submitting the documentation as well as the reimbursements for the project.
And just a couple clarifications. One, thank you for providing Sembri the information for the people who need to have accounts in the system as well as your authorization official. I believe that she's asked for all 3 points of information. So based on what you've provided us, you'll see your authorization official pre-selected. You will not be able to change that. If the authorization official ever changes, just send the information to us. We will change it in the system. Your primary and secondary, you can have as many user accounts as your organization needs. We're starting off with at least one and maybe up to 2. If you need more, we can get more, but you'll only be able to select one primary and one secondary. The only distinction between these two, and if you have a third user, the only distinction would be that these two will get automated emails from the system whenever certain actions are taken. whereas just a regular user who is not a primary or secondary contact wouldn't get the automated emails, but they would still have full access to your account.
And I would highly recommend that you actually submit only the names of people who are going to use the SAAS system, not 10 names. And I think when you start to get beyond 3 or 4 names, it becomes a bit cumbersome and really not practical. But please, I would suggest strongly not more than 5 names, because generally only 2 people will use a system on any given subaward based on our experience, very rarely more than a couple of people.
And we did get one question about, can the authorization official be the same as a system user, a primary or secondary or other account? And yes, that is possible, and especially for a smaller organization, it might be more likely.
So the next section, Section 3, is environmental and historic preservation. Because there's a mandate that when you receive federal funding, there's a necessity to show and demonstrate the effect that the installation of equipment has on the integrity of historic events and historic buildings, and also the environment. So virtually for all of our projects, there's going to be a need for what's known as environmental and historic preservation approval from FEMA. The only time that such approval would not be necessary is if you had a project that was 100% contracted security personnel, or planning, or classroom-based training, or for some reason equipment that was totally mobile and nothing would be installed or fixed or mounted or fastened to a building. But that would be extremely rare. But more often than not, none of those exceptions would apply, so you would check a box saying none of the above, EHP required. Now in our next section, the Subaward Overview, in terms of dealing with the description, we want to know what is it you hope to accomplish during the period of performance. Exactly what is the purpose of your project? What are you going to get done? This is not a rewriting of your investment justification, but really relying on Section 4 of your investment justification target hardening to describe your project. We are going to install 20 cameras in whatever locations at our facility. So basically, you're not rewriting why you are in need of the grant. You've gotten the grant, you've won the grant, you're just telling us what you're doing. As it says here, if you are intending to purchase 100 widgets and placing those 100 widgets in certain locations, that's what we want to know. So specificity of equipment, specificity of components, specificity of installation location. We don't want to see things like we are going to buy a video surveillance system, an access control system, and barriers. We want to know how many cameras, how many NVRs, meaning recording devices, how many monitors, where these things are going to be placed within your facility, in classroom, in administrative offices, and that is the kind of detail we're looking for, 100 widgets, and where will those widgets be placed, relying on Section 4 of your investment justification. And I cannot stress enough, your activities for your PMP should almost exactly match what's in that investment justification. We should not be getting requests now for changes in your project. You just won the award. We should not be getting major funding shifts, or we want to replace an access control system with a door. That should not be happening. This is a competitive award. FEMA reviewed your investment justification and awarded an award to you based on the project as you described it. This is not a revolving door, change, everything is approved kind of thing. And in fact, changes in your project are disfavored. Also in Section 4.2, terrorism threat, you're relying on Section 3 in your investment justification. What were your risks? What did you see your risk as being? Again, it does not have to be a lengthy dissertation about the risk, but it should highlight the points that you've already written in Section 3 of your investment justification. The next section, and I think Charles is typing in some language so that you get a sense of the functionality of the SAAS system. One thing that we recommend that you do, save your text repeatedly as you're typing it so that you do not lose the information that you're typing. You can modify and edit all the time by scrolling to the bottom of the page, and you'll see at the bottom a button that says Save PMP. Press on that repeatedly as you are typing and crafting your document. Okay?
Okay, you can see we have a little bit of the system's thinking.
All right.
Hold on. Wait. Okay, now what we've seen happen here is we've saved the PMP, it reloads the page, and the reloaded page doesn't have is not editable. You can't write in these fields. So you go down to the very bottom, all the control buttons are always at the bottom. If you need to edit the PMP, and this one I think we want to edit because it's not finished, then you go ahead and click the edit button. It will reopen it as an editable version. If you think you're done, you want to submit it, you can click the submit button. I think we're not done, so we'll go ahead and click edit. And now it reopens again as an editable version. So every time you save it, it will automatically reopen locked, but you can always reopen it as an editable version with that button at the bottom. I do want to cover one more element of the description. You've already been successful in receiving this award. We supported it, FEMA supported it. So at this point, you don't really need to convince anybody of the value of the project. It's really more of a just the facts section here. So, what are you doing? And just a little bit about why you're doing it, what you hope to get out of it. This would be very much similar to section, I guess the last section of your IJ where you talked about the impact. You could probably borrow a lot of the language and put it in here. So what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And then we can move on to laying out in more detail, not just what you're doing, but how you're doing it, how you're getting from start to finish. You want me to cover this?
Okay, let's go to the different sections of the PMP. You have training, exercises, equipment, and organization. As the name implies, training would be if part of your investment justification included that you wanted to conduct training such as active shooter training, then you need to include that within the proper section of the PMP. So what would be the different elements of a training? You would describe the type of course first as your first deliverable, and a deliverable is an activity within a project that you want to achieve through grant funding. So you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 types of deliverables. Each of those are discrete activities that you want to have funded to accomplish through the period of performance for your subaward. So you would describe the course as active shooter training. You might provide more of a description in terms of providing a training for your congregants and staff to be able to respond in the event of an active shooter. And then within that, well, what are the steps necessary to accomplish an active shooter training? The first thing you would do is, 1, solicit bids for a trainer. A milestone is the first step that you have to consider toward the accomplishment of the total goal of getting that training done. And then you would indicate when do you think you would start to solicit those bids. You might start soliciting bids in the latter part of the year in December. You could use the calendar there, or you could type in the date 12/1/2021 as a start date for starting to solicit bids, and an end date. We think it's going to take 31 days to solicit bids to complete that process. 21. So you will have, after that, what is the next step after you have solicited bids from vendors? You would press on Add, another milestone.
And what we'll see here is the functionality difference. If you add another deliverable, it'll add a whole new blank line. If you add another milestone, milestone number 2 for this course deliverable, if you click Add Milestone, it will reload the page. It's working. Okay. And it will, because you're adding another milestone to the same deliverable, it will repeat automatically deliverable number 1, the course, the description, and in the blank portion is the milestone. And you could add milestone number 2 and move on. If you realize that you don't like what you entered, or you realize that you actually you added too many milestones or need to get rid of something, as long as you have the thing open for editing, you'll have the red X's on the right, and they do pretty much what you'd expect them to do. If you click the red X, it deletes the line. Are you sure you want to delete this deliverable record? Yes. Reloads the page, and milestone number 2 is gone. So if we then wanted to add a second deliverable, a different course of training, or a different step in probably a different training course would be a separate deliverable. Reloads the page with a second blank deliverable. You could add deliverable number 2 for a separate training course. One quick explanation, the schedule of deliverables and milestones are broken out into the different categories of activity. That's just how FEMA categorizes the way their funding is used, so we want to mimic that so we can report it to them that way. So it's the POETI, it's planning, organization, training, exercise, and equipment. If you don't have any training milestones, you don't need to add any. If you don't have any exercises, you can leave it blank, that's fine. When you save and submit your PMP, these things will just collapse and they won't show up at all. If you have no plans and written products, you can skip it. Most subrecipients from nonprofit will have physical security upgrades. Any physical security would be an equipment purchase. You're purchasing and installing equipment. Purchasing a fence is equipment. Purchasing lights is an equipment purchase, and then installation.
But one thing I will say, as you have deliverables in different sections, not every section starts with deliverable 1. So for instance, if you have training and that's a deliverable 1, then and your next set of deliverables are equipment purchases, then deliverable 2 will be where you start in equipment purchases for clarity in the spend plan.
So I think the basic functionality is what it is. You start with, deliverable number, describe it, milestone number, describe the milestone, start, end, and then add more if you need to. A note on this layout is that when it comes time to submit quarterly reports, the quarterly report will be generated based on your project plan, and all these fields will be locked. Because it's the same deliverable, it's the same milestone that you've already submitted. And what will show up to the right of your start and end dates is a % complete field, and that's what you'd be reporting on. So if we're submitting this report in January of 2022, and this first deliverable was suggested that it would be complete by the end of December of 2021, then you'd most likely be reporting it 100% complete in your quarterly report. If you don't report it 100% complete, that would indicate that you're running behind schedule. And the further behind schedule it gets, the more we might suggest you need to revise your project plan or maybe rethink how you're approaching the project, because you don't want to report 0% complete on something that's supposed to be complete already and expect that SEMBRI won't follow up and say, well, what's going on? Why is it so far behind schedule? This should be helpful also for you to report outwards your progress. That's our goal, is the project plan can be provided to your organization, leadership, or stakeholders to say, this is what the project is, and as you're doing quarterly reporting, ideally, you could use that same quarterly reporting to report your progress internally as well. So the functionality of, add it, delete it, that's pretty much what we wanted to walk you through so you understood how to make it work. Once you get your hands on the PMP, then you can start actually filling it out. Next up is the financial plan, section 6. There are a couple of acronyms spelled out here that we've used before, the AEL and the POETI.
You have familiarity with the AEL code from having completed Section 4 of your investment justification. Those are the codes that you were provided with when you applied for the grant in February, March, or April of this year. If you do not have your AEL code from that time, you can use the site in the PowerPoint presentation. It does give you the current AEL code that FEMA has online.
And these are free text fields. So, for instance, if you were saying describe the item, 5 video security cameras, that would be a reasonable description. AEL code, I don't know it off the top of my head.
14 SW-01 VIDA, V-I-D-A.
I knew it. I knew you'd know. Okay. The deliverable or milestone number, that would be referring back up to your deliverables and milestones. Which one of these things is that purchase support? So if in this one, I guess video. So this would be equipment deliverable number 1. Again, this is a free text field. You could say equipment that would be fine. You can really describe it however you want to. This is basically meant for us to understand this purchase equates to what deliverable or milestone. What kind of item, and select it from a drop-down list, equipment. How does it match up to the POETI? Well, we already said it was equipment, so there we go. Cost computation. Now, this is a field, it's just sometimes easier to put the estimated cost in first and then back into the cost computation. So if this one was entered at 5,000 for estimated cost, click outside the box.
And for cost,
reloading the page.
And while it's doing that, for cost computation, often we will know how many units you have times the cost of each unit. So if you have 5 cameras, and you could write 5 units times 1,000 per unit. So we understand the basis of your final estimated cost. So to the extent you have that kind of information, please provide it. Unit cost times the number of units. If, for instance, you have contracted security personnel, you know that you're going to have them for 52 weeks, 2 security guards at $35 an hour. It would be great if you could find a way to include that kind of specificity within your cost computation, the basis for your total estimated cost.
So that, yeah, that's the goal of this section, is to kind of lay out why you ended up at this final total. Ideally, this is meant to be a project management planning tool that will be helpful to you as well as to us, so that, for instance, if your costs change, then as you start changing your cost assumptions, you'll realize that your overall budget needs to change, and then that might affect other things. So again, this is hopefully meant to be useful to you as far as a planning and explanation tool for how you're going to approach your work. A couple of things to point out about the functionality of entering the cost in this field. Once I entered $5,000 in this field, it reloaded the page, and I had to scroll back down. You see the 5,000 is there, but a couple of other things have also changed. For one thing, the running total displays. So you're seeing a running total of 5,000 so far. And then beneath that, unallocated subaward amount, $70,000. So we created this as a $75,000 project, and when we allocated 5, there's 70 left. And we do this because in order to submit the project plan, all of the funding needs to be accounted for. So if you built out a project plan that only added up to $70,000, you wouldn't be able to submit it. When you hit the submit button, it would throw up an error message and tell you that the funds had not been allocated. So that's the reason we do display this number down here, so you always know when you're done and you're down to 0, you're done with the financial plan. Now, we're at the bottom of the PMP. This is the second to last step. The last step, or second to last step, is save the PMP. You notice you can't submit it right now, and you can't PDF it. You can save the PMP. And, okay, waiting for it to reload. here we go. And now we're back at the saved, uneditable version. And now the other buttons show up. You can PDF the PMP, and if you have Adobe PDF saved on your computer, this will generate a printer-friendly version. It's also convenient to just save the file and send it to, for instance, your board if they want to know what your project looks like. This is an easy way to share it with people who don't use the system. You can go back and edit it if you want to, or you can attempt to submit it. You'll also notice these two grayed out buttons, approve and reject. This is what we get when you submit it to us. When you submit it, it shows up to us, and SEMBRI has two choices, approve or reject. There's really no third option. So if something needs to go back for a revision or an update or a clarification, she'll have to hit the reject button. You'll get a notice that says your PMP has been rejected, but you'll also get comments. So don't take the word reject too hard, hopefully. It just means this is the way it's going back to your side for more revision. And if it gets approved, then you'll get a notice saying it's been approved. Okay, I had a couple of, okay, and then the button you would hit to, if you think you're finished, we all know that this project is not finished because there's a lot missing. So if I try to submit this one right now, let's see what happens. Oh, okay, there we are, error message. Total estimated spend plan items should equal the subaward amount. Okay, it does update, there's no exercises, no plans, no organization, but these are green messages. They're not problems. You didn't have to have exercises. You just had to have something here. And the spend plan doesn't equal the total. Okay, that is the project plan. Our next step is we are going to create all of the projects, finish up creating all of your accounts. You'll get notifications from the system when your account is available, and you'll be told how to log in, and then when you log in, you'll be able to fill out your PMP. The home screen, I just want to go back to real quick. Let me pull it back up. Again, you have home, which will always take you back to your home screen, and you've got your name up here. The only functions you can have for the project are, as we went over before, you can click on SubAward ID to bring up the details page, and then you'll have PMP. Sorry, let me get this away. The PMP, it displays the current PMP status, and this is where you can click to either open the PMP, or if it's in create or draft status, you can open up the editable version. And then the quarterly report. And for this one, this is a 2021, it's blank, and that's because the period of performance hasn't even started yet. Period of performance starts on September 1st. The first quarterly report will show up in December, and it will be for the period of October, November, and December. We do quarters on the calendar year quarters, so October, November, December. That report will be due on January 10th, and the QSR won't even show up until the 1st of December. I did have a question about the difference between training and exercise. It's a matter of slight taste. Exercising is basically testing how well you do something. Training is learning. But I agree, there are some times where there's a bit of a blend between the two. We're not going to split hairs on that. Just try to be consistent in how you describe the activity.
But I do think that there's valuable information in the Notice of Funding Opportunity.
Yes. Yep, that is correct. In the NOFO, it goes into more detail about what training is eligible and what exercise is eligible, so you might want to align your description of your proposed costs to that.
And we do have an email about, again, as we've said repeatedly from the beginning, you will hopefully get the email about SAA SP user information within the next week.
Once the PMP is submitted and approved, then the subawards will be issued. Then you'll actually have a piece of paper in hand from DC HSEMA identifying the award, identifying the amount, and once you've signed it and accepted it, that seals the agreement between our two organizations. And the next step after that would be to get probably your EHP submissions ready to go. That is probably going to be the one thing that will hold up most subrecipients by the most significant amount. As SEMBRI indicated, unless your project, I don't recall getting any approved that were entirely non equipment purchases, we would definitely review that very closely with you if you think that you are exempt due to not doing any installation whatsoever. But most subrecipients for nonprofit would have to go through EHP. We will post some training on how to fill out EHP forms. The forms are currently on our website, and you can get them. For those who are totally lost and confused and want to have guidance on how to fill it out, we definitely want to get you that training, and we'll get that out as soon as possible. You'd want to submit your EHP documentation to SEMBRI. We would then submit it to FEMA. FEMA will then do its review, and if it decides it needs to have a consultation with other agencies or with the State Historic Preservation Office, they will go through that process. Once EHP approval is granted, at that point, you can commence your project, or at least those aspects of your project that require EHP approval. Okay, and I do know that we do have several organizations or members of the community that have a series of holidays coming up, and that's why we wanted to get this out of the way before that happened, so that then once we hand off the tools to you, you can basically self-serve when you have time. We'll take your project plan when you have it ready to go. It's not necessarily a rush on our side, although I do know some of you have some time pressure and you want to get it done as soon as possible.
But please remember that you do have 2 years to complete the projects, not 2 months. And often FEMA approval is a lengthy process, and one has to be realistic in terms of how long it takes for everything to be approved.
And I know we talked about the next steps to go forward. I did get a question about a specific due date for the EHP. Not necessarily on our side, although because we know that EHP is a major first step, then we'll probably just follow up after the first quarter to let anybody who hasn't even initiated EHP work know that this is a step that needs to happen. We just want to make sure that you're getting at least quarterly reminders that EHP is still a requirement, that is still outstanding. But again, that's not a hard deadline on you. It's just that if it never gets done, the project never gets done. So we would want to hopefully have subrecipients moving forward expeditiously on EHP after their PMP is done and after they've received their award.
I'm seeing questions about reimbursement. We hope to address these issues more fully in the subrecipient handbook. So please, when you get your award package, if you find that information to not be sufficient, and if you have questions after reading the materials that are provided, then we can address those questions after that review.
We are coming up near the end of our time. I am going to review the chat to see if we have any other items that we have not covered.
And again, as I had indicated in the agenda, the topics of environmental and historic preservation and reimbursement requests are something that we hope to address in some form or fashion later in the year in November. It may be a self-taught training or another session such as this, but again, it was not the aim of this particular training to deal with EHP or reimbursement.
Okay, and SEMBRI, in an ideal world, when will you hope to have all the PMPs submitted, at least for initial review?
We want all initial PMPs submitted by the 30th of September. I think that would give enough people, particularly those that have holidays, enough time to draft something in between the holidays that they have in, I think, the beginning of September or the latter part of August.
Yeah, we want to get the awards out, to you in an expeditious fashion. So the sooner you get your PMPs done, the sooner we get our awards out, and so that's our goal. For anybody who's running into that date and realizing that they're not able to finish it by then, I would say towards the closer we get to that date, let us know what your situation is and when you believe you'll be able to get it done, as well as whatever other kind of support or issues you're running into, because we want to make sure that we can support you in getting it done. Okay, I think we have a good amount of questions that in the chat that we've addressed. We'll go through and scrub it after the call is over. We have been recording this webinar, and we will, so we can go back over any questions we've missed, and we can turn it into a Q&A that we can send out along with any other materials later. But the main function we wanted to get through was to give you the initial kickoff, a quick update on how we're relating to you and how we're relating to FEMA, what the goals of the program are, and it's also how to fill out your first project management plan and where to go to do that. The next step for us is to get out all of your user accounts set up and get those emails out to you, letting you know how to log into the system. And then I guess we'll have hopefully a lot of PMPs in the short order.
And I will say this about if you did not get the full amount of the funding that you sought, often there is an allowability issue that FEMA made a judgment on, meaning that they found something to be unallowable and they discounted that from the total amount of your subaward. But I will say this, that in our review of it, that we may also find additional unallowable costs that we might need to bring to the attention of FEMA for determination. But generally, you're absolutely right. The lesser amount reflects some allowability issue that they saw when they reviewed your investment justification. If I see a note specifically about what's unallowable, I tend to put a note in your information and action log. You're not familiar with this yet, but I will put some type of notation in the SAAS system about what is an unallowable cost. If you have things that are in the wrong category, generally not category 14 or 15 equipment with some minor exceptions on some radios that are, I think, category 6 and some category 3 equipment that is very, very limited. If you have equipment that's the wrong category, that also will be often the basis of something found to be disallowed.
Yeah, and the detail on what was not funded we will get when FEMA gives us the award letter. It might not be immediately apparent to us, so if we can't understand what they're saying, then we might need to follow up with the FEMA program office to find out what they were really talking about. But there are two types of things we'll get in the award letter. One is funds not awarded for XYZ reason, and it will say, like, you know, such and such subrecipient awarded $60,000, funds for this thing not approved. That will hopefully make it clear enough to us what is in and what's out. The other type of thing that may show up is if FEMA has put a hold on the award to answer some kind of question that they had. Either they need the investment justification updated or they need more detail on a certain item that was in it. And as soon as we get that information, we will communicate that with you so we can get that information back to FEMA and get the hold lifted. That doesn't stop us from moving forward with the project plan or getting your EHP all queued up. I think we should get all those things moving as quickly as possible so that when FEMA does release the hold, you will be in the clear to move forward.
And we do not approve PMPs with a hold. A PMP will not be approved until that hold is lifted. So, again, congratulations to you all. You represent the top, 25% of subawards. This is the most, I think, the most money the region has been allocated in the history of the award, and so we look forward to working with you. And, again, congratulations. We do realize that you're anxious to get your project started, but you have more than enough time to complete your project.
Since we are now at our time, and we will follow up individually with anybody who has additional questions we weren't able to answer. But I think since we're at our time, we took a full hour and we were going at a pretty good clip, so I don't want to take up any more of your time. We'll go out and send out a Q&A based on the questions that were answered, asked and answered in this session. We'll also be sending out a link to a future training, online training that you can take at your own time about our subrecipient handbook and our various terms and conditions. We hope to get that out next week. And we certainly will be getting out your new grant system credentials for anybody who's brand new, or if you're a returning user who currently has access to the system, you'll see this award show up so you can fill out your PMP hopefully by early next week.
If we don't talk to you, enjoy your Labor Day. And for those celebrating holidays, again, we look forward to working with you all.
Have a good afternoon, everybody.